This is Healing at Soul Level with your host, Shauna Williams. Shauna is here to provide various forms of healing that are non-invasive, that promote relaxation and aid the body in naturally healing itself by using ancient healing techniques that have been around for centuries. So please welcome the host of Healing at Soul Level, Shauna Williams.
Good morning. Welcome to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shauna Williams. The spirit world uses many avenues to contact us. Sometimes they contact us because they want to give us a warning or a nudge. And sometimes it's just to say, hey, I'm here. You're not walking this path alone. I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you. And they use many different signs, like they use all of your senses, your eyes, your sense of smell, taste, hearing, even touch. My guest today, Fall Smith, she happens to know a lot on this subject. Fall is an artistic painter, teacher, intuitive reader, and jewelry artisan at Power of the Rainbow. She also offers healing sessions, angel attunements, crystal divination, and tarot card readings. Fall's also an ordained minister in the Universal Life Church and is available for house cleansing and blessing services. Welcome to the show, Fall. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Shauna.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. It's a little bit rainy here in the area.
Yeah, actually it is. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a native Texan from the DFW area, and for a little over 10 years, I've been in the family business, which, of course, like you said, it's Power of the Rainbow, which is a metaphysical gem and mineral retail shop, and it's in North Arlington. And there, I'm a certified crystal healing practitioner. That's where I got my certification, and also through Jewels of the Lotus, and that's out of Chicago. And like I said, I'm a jewelry designer and an intuitive and an artist. I love to paint. And I also teach the crystal healing workshops alongside my mother, which is Pat Cook. And the shop actually got its name from her medicine name, Power of the Rainbow. And
it's interesting.
I used to actually be a financial reporting accountant several years ago before we opened up the shop. And so I've changed a lot.
That's a big flip.
Way different. Yeah. It's much more fun to be able to go to work every day and have a job helping people and being around beautiful things like crystals every day rather than looking at a bunch of numbers. But the crystals are my main passion, and also helping people by sharing my knowledge of the crystals and gifts that I have, like the jewelry making, to help people on their own personal path.
You know, speaking of numbers, since you worked in the numbers, it's kind of funny to me that you worked with numbers, and now I know you see patterns in things with numbers from the spirits, right?
Yes. And what's funny is I didn't ever notice before when I was in accounting and looking at the numbers every day. But here more recently, I guess for the past 7 years is when I've been seeing the recurring number phenomenon. Actually, it has that name for it. But many, many people will come in and say that they've been seeing the same thing. And I generally see 11, like one repeating, like 111 or 1111. Mm-hmm. So I'll be driving down the road and I'll just glance over at a building and that'll be the address number, or I'll look and see what time it is and it's 1111. And sometimes your receipts will have those numbers on them when you're checking out at the store. But I've noticed that whenever I do get that number, it's like you need to notice, if you ever have this phenomenon and you get the ones, you need to notice what it is that you were just thinking about, or what just happened, or what's about to happen next, because the universe is taking a snapshot of whatever you were thinking about. And so that's what, in a sense, you're manifesting. So you want to keep your thoughts positive to be able to manifest those positive things in your life rather than the negative. So it's kind of a way, it's kind of like turning on a light bulb or are giving you a little smack to get your attention on what's going through your head.
So it's kind of like if I'm walking with you and I notice something and I say, hey, fall, look over there. That's their way of doing that, right?
Yes, very much so. A lot of times it'll happen and you won't notice it, so that has to happen again, and you'll have that aha moment of or deja vu, saying, I've seen this before. That's weird. But generally, it happens about 3 times before you really take notice and think about what a coincidence this might be, or you're probably in a moment of synchronicity on your path as well.
So when you talk about...
Some people see 2s. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think there was a little lag. So I was going to say, so when you see numbers, is there any special, like ones are telling you, trying to get your attention, or are all different sequential numbers trying to get your attention, or do they mean something different?
Well, all of them, yes, are trying to get your attention, because it's the thing that's probably most noticeable to people. But each of the numbers has its own vibration or meaning to it. Like the 2s will mean it's very much a creative number, and so like new ideas are beginning and to grow, and they're also good numbers for manifesting. So keeping your positive thoughts are still important no matter what numbers you're seeing. But 3s are those are to help you with love and companionship, and you would think that it would be the 2s, but the 3s are kind of setting things in motion, and the numbers go on. But there are books and sites online that you can go to see what numbers that you're seeing, if it has a meaning, if it keeps showing up for you. They say that angels are behind this. I haven't had that experience to know for sure if that's the case, but it's definitely a possibility. I kind of think of the numbers as more coming from the universe, and mathematics as the universal language. So it would make sense that it's part of the collective consciousness.
Oh yeah, that does make sense. Is that kind of how they do the patterns when we sacred geometry?
Yes, that does have to do with numbers, and one of my favorites in sacred geometry is actually the Metatron's cube and the flower of life, favorite. And also the seed of life. And
I
what's
love
funny
those.
is one of the first signs I saw was the Vesica Pisces, which is the 2 circles where they overlap, and it makes like the little fish symbol in the center. And I was at the State Fair of Texas, and I was looking at all this jewelry, and I saw the well in Glastonbury, England. It's the Chalice Well. And it has this ornate design, but that's what's on top of this metal covering for the well is the Vesica Pisces. And so that's also a symbol for me in sacred geometry. That's one of the first ones I received since I started being on more of a spiritual path.
Well, this is very interesting. I can't wait to hear more about it, but we need to take a break right now. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shauna Williams, and today we're talking with Fall Smith about signs and messages from the spirit. We last left off talking about numbers and what types of signs they are. So she's going to go on and tell us what other ways that the spirit tries to contact us. Fall?
Okay. Well, I kind of want to start out with a quote by Robert Frost. Nature is always hinting at us. It hints over and over again, and suddenly we take the hint. And that is my favorite way to receive messages, is by things that are found in nature. And not all of us can be out in nature every day in our concrete world in the city, but there are other ways that nature can reach us through symbols, such as spirit animals. They come to us bringing message, especially birds. But there are many, many animals and ways that you can come across them. Somebody might mention a particular animal, and you might see one on a billboard ad. There'll be the Geico thing going by, and you'll see the gecko. Just many different ways, and sometimes in songs they'll talk about them. But that is, I'm very much a lover of all animals, and I love to see them. And my house is filled with symbols of different animals. And my personal favorite is the fox, the gray fox, namely. But I love all of them the same. But there was a time when. Okay, go ahead.
This is just a little bit off of the subject a little bit, but expanding on your love for animals. You said that there's a YouTube video that, I haven't found it yet. I want to find it where you're singing to a bird or something.
Yes. My brother actually calls me the animal whisperer, the bird whisperer. Yes, it's on my Facebook page. It's under my name, Fall Smith. And if you look in my video section, there's one of me holding a female cardinal that had crashed into our glass windows at the front of our shop. And so I gently scooped it up and took it inside the shop and was sitting there with the bird in my hand, and it was being fairly calm. And it started to get nervous, so I started singing to it. And as I'm singing to it, it relaxes, and I can actually feel it relaxing in my hand. And its eyes start to flutter a little bit, and it actually falls asleep. So
that
I
is
got the
so
whole thing
cute.
on video. It's kind of interesting.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear about that. I wanted everybody to hear about that because that's just amazing to me.
So if everybody goes there, they'll hear me singing, but that's okay. I'm not too bad.
Okay, I'm sorry. We can get back on subject. So you're talking about the animals and everything.
Yeah, I remember before I even was aware that there were sacred symbols at all, that I remember my first memory of an animal sign when I thought back up to it was I was walking along a trail it was near Creede, Colorado, and that's where my family always goes in the summertime on vacation. And I had my headphones in, I was even singing to my music, walking along this trail all by myself out in the woods. And all of a sudden, right in front of my path, walked two coyotes. And they stopped and they looked at me. And of course, I stopped singing immediately and stared at them. And by the time I processed what had happened, I immediately turned and ran for some reason. They're slightly dangerous, yes, but these two were just looking at me. They were calm. And when I turned and ran, I ran all the way back, nearly falling over myself, just trying to get back to where the camper was. And they had just turned and walked off the path. And when I stopped, I looked around just to see if they'd follow me, and they weren't. And in Native American lore that they pass down, there's all these creation stories and trickster stories about the coyote. And he has many names, like Tueda is what I refer to him as when I'm telling stories. But there's a spirit keeper of the South in the Lakota tradition, and his name is Shawnee. And so he's the one that governs the South and all things about the emotional body. Mm-hmm. So now that I was thinking about it, I was like, what could that have meant now that I know that it was a sign? And coyote is a trickster, and they tell you when you see them that there's something to be learned, some hidden wisdoms, and it's not going to come easy. A lot of times there's a price to pay to get the wisdom, as they are the jokesters, and the humor in it, though, is to be taken seriously, and to know that it's okay to laugh. It's okay to play jokes and pranks, and and so basically my path didn't really come that easy to me. I had when I first started being aware of the energies that were beyond the ones that I could see, I had a little bit of a healing crisis, and things were a little bit difficult at first, and actually had overheating. My body overheating was one of the things that I experienced. And that's when I basically told my guides, when they're going to give me a sign, I do not want that one. Please do not come at me that way. So I haven't experienced signs from spirit in the way of communicating with me through heat anymore. But with the animals, it's a much more pleasurable way to see some of the animals in real life or as a sign.
You know, that's great that you said that we could just tell them, you know, if we do get a sign or something that makes us not feel good or feel well, it's okay to just tell them, right?
Right. Even if you can't discern them speaking back to you, definitely our guides and spirit animal guides and allies, they listen to us. You know, we have our own free will for what we're willing to take and what we're not wanting to take. So we are the ones that govern ourselves on that. So, but on the same note, if you want to ask for something, so whether you're asking it of your divinity, like God or creator, whatever that may be. There's also angels and your guardian guides. And just by asking them for some guidance, that is the way that you get some stuff started rather than just waiting for something. You can ask them. That's actually the first key to beginning to get the wisdom unlocked from the sacred sign.
Okay. Well, man, yeah, I do enjoy this conversation we're having. We do need to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Shauna Williams, your host of Healing at Soul Level. Today, we're talking to Fall Smith about signs and messages from the spirit. So, Fall, we left off. We were talking about symbols and signs that they give.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, and when you say, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, when I say spirit, or the universe, I figured I better clarify what that means, because there are many ways or places or entities that we can get this sign from or information from and guidance. And one of the main ones would be our spirit guides and spiritual teachers, the ones that are not incarnate, the ones that are in the spirit realm on the other side of the veil, the ones that reach us through these sacred signs. And also there's angels and like our own guardian angels and the archangels and other benevolent light beings. And of course, like we talked about, the spirit animals and allies, those are the ones that they actually were put here to do the teaching. And basically in Native American tradition, that's why they look to the animals for guidance from the Creator, is because that's where they were the ones who initially are the ones that talked to the Creator to give us those teachings. And also, of course, my favorite thing to talk about is the stones. And the stones are actually sentient beings. And it's so fascinating because they actually call them the stone tribe or the rock people. But each crystal has its own essence and own diva inside of it. Not that it necessarily lives there like it's a little fairy inside of it, but it's one that you can actually hold in your hand, a crystal, and receive messages from this crystal or teachings. And that's one reason why I think people love to collect them and wear them. But being that I sell crystals for a living, it's really, really rewarding to see the person hook up with the right stone. And then I get to hear, whenever they come back in again, they'll tell me stories about what has happened with the crystal or since they got it. And it's lovely to hear that. And
so is that like
also
is that like whenever I go to the store and I just like I might see a crystal that I like, because I do frequent her store because they've got a lot of good crystals there, and when I pick up one, it feels like it's vibrating in my hand. I can feel it, it's not moving, but I can feel the vibration and the energy from it. Is that like them telling me I'm the one for you?
Basically, the crystal just picked you when that happens. So you may think that you're picking the crystals, but they do things to attract us to them. And then it's like them saying hello, and it's like an affirmation when that happens. Sometimes people can't experience that at first. And when they pick up a crystal, they may not feel the vibration, but they may feel a change within themselves, or just like a beautiful feeling that comes over, or a sense of peace. And that's generally on the same line as them picking you. As far as receiving like pictures of a crystal, I've heard people have a deck of cards, like oracle cards with the pictures of different stones on them, and they can actually feel the energy from the stones through the cards that are of photographs of the pictures. I personally have never experienced that, but many people have told me that they can, and it's just because it's the intent that the reason that works.
Oh, okay.
But much like the stone, there's also the tree people, or the plant tribe. There's a lot of people that resonate a lot with all things green. I love trees, but I'm not a very good gardener. They say I have a black thumb, but it's hard for me to keep a plant alive, but I am into essential oils, and I love it when it comes to me already the essence of the plant in the essential oil. But there are people that speak to the plant. Of course, there is a saying, if you sing to your plants or talk sweetly to them, they'll grow. But the plants also have messages for us, as well as spiritual medicine and physical medicine for healing.
Is it a feeling from plants? Is that also a feeling, or is there something else that I could be looking out for?
I'm not really so sure about that, because I don't have that same kind of connection. But I do know this: whenever I go out in nature, and I have my feet, I usually have shoes on when I go outside, but I can touch a tree and I can get a sense of what that tree is trying to tell me. There is one example I can tell you about. One Christmas, it was right before Christmas actually, I was at Home Depot walking through their garden center. And all of a sudden, I saw all these trees that had been cut off, and they were tethered down. All the branches were tight around them. And I got this overwhelming feeling of pain and sadness, and I just started wanting to touch the tree. So I warmed up my hands to do Reiki on them. I rubbed my hands together quickly or clap them a little bit, and I did Reiki on the bottom of the tree stump, and I could sense the pain from this tree. So it was actually like communicating with me, and I just started bawling. And there was people walking by with their kids, like, why is that woman crying? But I just experienced such empathy. I'm even tearing up right now talking about it.
Me too. You giving it to me.
But the tree, it knew that it was being honored. So it was at peace with what happened, but it was a little bit of pain. It wasn't like it was regretting it, because they know that it was going to be adorned with ornaments, and there would be people and family around it, and it would end up having like a last hurrah, but I could feel the pain from it.
Wow. Okay, well, that one left me a little teary, so I think we should go ahead and take a break so I can get myself back together. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shauna Williams. So we're talking to Fall Smith about signs and messages from the spirit. Okay, we left off, we were talking about nature and the signs that Fall got from the nature. What were we talking about, Fall?
Well, we were just talking about what spirit it actually is. Like, what are we talking about when we say messages from spirit? And we left off talking about the plant tribe or the tree people.
That's right.
There are other entities or people or that we receive messages from. One of the ones I get asked about the most, in fact, after you left the workshop that we did on the subject last night from my shop, I spoke with one of the attendees, and they were wanting to know how to receive signs and messages from their loved ones that had just passed. Namely, this lady's husband had passed and was no longer living, and this was about a couple of months ago. And so that would be called like a mediumship or channeling, to be able to communicate. Well, mediumship would be communicating like on a two-way street back and forth, and channeling is receiving those messages. So there's several different ways to do that, to connect with someone who's deceased in the spirit world, or also a disembodied spirit that has not either realized that it's departed. But usually that's not what I encounter when I'm clearing houses that I need to communicate with. Usually it's an energetic imprint. But the way that most people can receive a message from someone who's departed is through dreams. And also one other way is through songs, like songs that come on the radio. Most likely something like that. You're not going to see a chair move or something like that, because that takes like a lot of energy for them to move objects, and that's usually a disembodied spirit or something that can do that. But just like if someone has passed and you really want to know that they're okay, they do send messages. Generally, in about the first 3 months after someone passes. At least that's what I've heard from a medium that I really had a lot of credibility with me. Actually, a preacher's wife. So imagine that.
Yeah.
But there are also other things like just ascended masters and archetypical beings. Like I would include Mother Mary in that. Hopefully that doesn't offend anyone. But also like Saint Germain, any of the saints, and they can send powerful messages of affirmation that are spiritual and religious in nature, just basically to comfort people and to give them guidance. And also, this usually gets a smirk out of people when you mention elementals. Elementals are, like most people have heard of fairies, of course.
Right.
So a lot of people think of them as fantasy creatures, which to us on this realm, yes, they are fantasy creatures because you cannot generally see something like that. But I have actually had an experience that changed my mind about all of this. But before I get to the story, the thing that a lot of people can receive, anyone can look up, and at any point in time, there should be in this area in North Texas, there's clouds usually in the sky, and clouds take on formations that look like things or point in a direction, and they can get your attention by being very strange. And through cloud seeding and stuff that they do to modify where the rain goes nowadays, it does cause a lot of strange-looking clouds. And there's a spirit that's an elemental called a sylph, and a sylph is a cloud being, and those are the ones that give us messages through the clouds. There's actually a divination that uses the sylphs as a communicator, and
interesting.
But I was doing a workshop, a jewelry making workshop with Brazilian Lemurian seed quartz crystals. There were several people in the class, but I wanted to do a meditation inside of a grid made out of those crystals. And when I did this, only my cousin was present, who had also taken the workshop with me. So it was just us two. And the meditation wasn't one that I was doing a guided imagery thing. We were just playing some music and sitting, just feeling the energy. And I started to itch. I mean, not just a little itch, and my hair was tickling my face, and it got so bad that I opened my eyes, and the room was dim, but there was lights coming from underneath the door because we're in the back of my shop. And when I opened my eyes, I could see my cousin sitting across from me, who his head has no hair on it. So I saw a white bird sitting on the top of his head, and he was itching too. And when he would shake and itch his head, the bird would flap its wings. And then there's these little things that I saw flying around him. And I thought, oh my God, I've been drugged. But, of course, but I didn't even believe what I was seeing. And I told him, I said, Jimmy, open your eyes. And he looked, and he was like, oh my gosh, what is that? And I said, I think it's fairies. And we kind of were laughing, but we both saw the same thing. And what the crystal grid was intended to do was to kind of open up a visual beyond the fourth dimension for us to witness. And it worked. I do offer that at my Medicine Quest workshops from time to time. Probably won't do that one until September. But
I'll be there in September then.
Okay, all right.
I think that would be really cool.
I do have a limit of 12 people for that one, and it includes myself. So I guess I need to, since this is on the radio, then I guess I need to go ahead and start taking reservations for that one. So because it'll probably fill up now. But the elementals are a real thing. I know because I've seen them, and it's only what you choose to be open to receive from that you're going to experience. So anyone who is like, that's a bunch of hoo-ha, and, they probably will never experience stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that I was totally open to it, but I wasn't opposed to anything. I had kind of an open mind with receiving. But we experienced a whole lot of different things that night. So it was a very awakening experience for both of us.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to sign up for that class. Go ahead and put me down now, because I will make sure I'm there. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. Today, we're speaking with Fall Smith, and we're talking about signs and messages from the spirit. Fall, I'd like to know, how would myself and our listeners learn how to do this? How do we, learn to spot these things?
Well, to start off, being aware or having mindfulness is the very baseline thing that you can do. And what I like to tell people is to be present, be grounded, be aware of what is going on around you, and be conscious of the thoughts that you're having in your head. That way, when something different comes into your vibration, or if a sign is coming to you, if you're open to receive and you're very mindful, then you will notice these signs and from spirit. Also, to know of a way to basically get out of your head a little bit, and when you ask for guidance. So when I say get out of your head, I mean to switch over from the ego mind, the one that tells us that this is silly, or the one that kind of acts like the part of our consciousness that brings only in the physical reality. That if you can kind of be able to open up and step away from that, where you still have the ego mind and also are open to your higher self, which is another place you can get messages from, is your own higher self. But to be able to get in that mindset, it helps to do like an actual meditation. One of my favorite ways to do a meditation is to do a guided imagery. I can even have that meditation as I'm speaking and leading a group on the same visual. But for the listeners at home, they don't have somebody to walk them through it. And if they're not able to do it themselves and be able to relax enough, a good thing to do is to go on YouTube and test out by playing a little bit of each little guided imagery meditation with using the keyword when you search for whatever your intention would be. Then you can test them out and see if you like the person's voice, if you think it will make you relax. Then you just play a little bit of it, and then you could add it to your watch list or one of your categories. And then when you have time to be able to just sit in silence or lay down when you have about 20 minutes to ask for guidance, and just play this with your eyes closed and relaxing, holding your crystals if you have any. It also helps. But you will be surprised what kind of messages and what kind of communications and wisdom that you can receive in a meditation. That's my primary way whenever I'm asking for guidance, what I actually do. Sometimes, like if I'm just walking around the store and I'm trying to help someone else to get this information, then I kind of have to have that duality about me where I'm still talking to them in the present, but yet I'm still communicating with my guides that are working with their guides to help me help them. And if most people get a chance to experience this whenever they come into the shop and ask me a question, and that's because that's usually what I'm doing. I may not tell them that's what I'm doing, but if they're asking me for help, that's like giving me permission to help them. So, and that's one of the ways that I do it. But for everyone else, you will find that in meditation and being able to talk to the guides, you just get more and more open, and your connection gets stronger. And it does take time, and it does take repetition. But most people know how to pray. It doesn't matter who you're praying to, but just to be able to ask for help from a divine source. That alone is the first step in asking for a sign or crying for a vision. And
we should.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. We should probably also keep something, maybe a journal or something, because I know signs come up for me and I don't know what it means. So
yeah, and
maybe
it's
if
not
I write it down
to know what it means. Yeah, it's not always important to know what it means at first. But yes, I always advise keeping a journal for when things do come up that you think is a sign, to write it down. And also you can write a date, the day of the week, or where you were, what you were doing, maybe what you were thinking at that time, or what happens next, and to go back and write that down beneath it. That way you can kind of end up with your own little personal repertoire of sacred symbols that mean something to you, because a symbol that means something to one person may mean something completely different to someone else. For instance, I don't know why this is what it means to me, but an apple, if someone says the word apple, my mind immediately thinks fertility. And I'm not exactly sure why, but so when I see somebody coming into the store and I keep thinking of an apple or getting a visual of an apple, when I'm talking to them, I'll kind of see if I can lead the conversation to see if that's what they're looking for a stone for, is for fertility, because they're trying to have a baby or something. And but most people, they hear apple and they think of healthy, or they think of red, or organic, something like that. But so whatever your symbol is for you, it's important that you be able to write it down, so that way when something happens again with that same symbol, it may start to make sense over time when you go to look back at the things that you've written in the past. And you could also, having the web online, there's so much information you can get on what a sign might mean, but it's always going to be a personal experience, and what's good for one person may not be another. So it's a very individualized thing.
So whenever you get a sign, it could be, so basically when they're giving you a sign, once you find out what that sign is, once you find the meaning of it, normally they do the same thing for the same purpose to tell you the same meaning once you understand it.
Yes, yes, that is
Oh,
usually the case. At least in my experience, it is.
okay.
So once you know what it means, and or what, even if you don't, is if you have an open heart, then you'll be able to sense if that's an answer or a sign that it has a message to it. And if it doesn't feel right, then it may be nothing. That it's not going to hurt to write something down. But just to accept that whatever answer you get or message you get from it, you have to be willing to receive it. Because why ask if you're really not ready to receive the guidance?
Right.
But
We need to take a quick break.
Trust the information. Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shauna Williams. We're talking to Fall Smith about signs and messages, and we've had a really good conversation on that, but I'd like to know a little bit more of other modalities or practices that you teach or that you do with other people, Fall.
Okay. There's a lot. It seems like a big list, but I don't get to do all of them all the time. But one of the services that I provide is chakra balancing, which takes about 30 to 45 minutes. And that's an individual session. And I do usually a guided imagery where I lay stones on your body. And if there's something that comes up, then I do add extra stones, and that's when it can run a little bit longer. But I don't do full-on crystal healings like Pat does at our store, but those can last anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. But
Wow.
I do mix, like in a session, I mix several different modalities when I'm doing a chakra balancing. For instance, I do a little bit of shamanic style healing, and I will use a rattle. I don't generally use a drum like my stepfather Trey does. Trey Bradford is also a healing practitioner, and he also works the store with me every day. He's really good with shamanic Reiki, and he's also a teacher. I have taken Reiki 1 and 2, so I can do Reiki practitioner sessions, but I'm not a teacher of that. And, but one thing that is fairly interesting that people are very interested in when they see what I do is I make a crystal clearing mist and an Archangel Michael spray. They're for clearing, and the Archangel one is also for protection. But I learned how to use the essential oils and crystals together through at Jewels of the Lotus, and that is it's called vibrational medicine using crystals and essential oils and astrological Ayurvedic stuff. So basically, I use planetary Ayurvedic astrology and your birth date and your birth time to get all this information about you to come up with a formula that is best for you. And that doesn't take that long for me to get that information, but a lot of people like to get aura mist and jewelry made based on their own personal little prescription, if you will. Let's see, what else do I do? Like I do theta healing. I don't do only theta healing sessions, but I like to show people how to do their own muscle testing, and that is something that you use in theta healing. It's always good to let people know a good way to test their own way to do to sense their own vibration on how they're feeling about something, whether it's a yes or no. And I can't think of anything else right at the moment. Asking somebody to talk about themselves is difficult.
Just a little too shy, but you do a lot of great work. I mean, every time I go in the store, I learn something new. And now being on the show, I've learned even more new things about you. It's
a goal of mine, definitely, to teach people to tap into their own intuition and be able to get answers for themselves. I do offer intuitive readings. I don't like to use the word psychic, but I really think it's key to empower someone to be able to connect for themselves. But
well, I'd like to thank you today for being on the show. So I'd like to thank you for sharing your knowledge about signs and messages from Spirit. And I'd like for everybody to tune in next week where we talk to Phyllis Gilchrist from Ataraxia Gemstones about her line of healing jewelry. For more information on this episode or to book healing services with me, visit my website at indigo-qi.com. You've been listening to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shauna Williams. Thank you for tuning in. I'll talk with you next week in love and light.
This has been Healing at Soul Level with host Shauna Williams. Listen each week as Shauna will help you discover the different healing modalities and how to use them in your everyday life, right here on Shauna Williams' Healing at Soul Level.